Citadelle des Morts is the brand new Call of Duty Black Ops 6 Zombies map that will be releasing on December 5th, and a brand new logo just dropped for it, and it looks absolutely incredible. Very glad they are actually giving us logos for this game because I was very worried that we weren't going to get them after Terminus and Liberty Falls didn't get them. Hopefully retroactively they'll give those two maps logos because I think every map deserves a logo, but regardless, very happy they are finally doing that for the maps again. But today I want to do a video talking about what I believe this map, Citadelle des Morts, needs in order to succeed. Sort of. I don't think it genuinely needs every single one of these things I'm going to talk about, but these are just things that I kind of hope will be on the map in some way, shape, or form. First things first, Citadelle des Morts needs to go really far with the medieval theme. I've been kind of missing this from Call of Duty Zombies for a while now, where I feel like the maps don't really go that hard with their theme. Instead, there's a theme there, but they only kind of include some of the map elements to be a part of that theme. But I really think this map just needs to go as far as BO3, BO4, and Infinite Warfare went, where most of the things on that map were designed around that theme. So obviously this map is going to have the medieval theme, and I really hope they go far with it. The music should be all medieval themed, like it should have that sort of vibe to it, kind of like what Ancient Evil had. The weapons, obviously the guns themselves are just going to be the BO6 guns, but when it comes to the wonder weapons, and I'm sure those are pretty much obviously going to be medieval themed. The current rumor is swords, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but I also think they should give us some new pieces of equipment and some new traps and even maybe some new score streaks. I'm not really expecting those. I really hope they do, but I feel like the score streaks and equipment is just going to be stuff that they carry over from multiplayer most likely, but I would love to see some unique things that fit the medieval theme, like a bow and arrow, for example. I mean, they had a bow and arrow in Cold War as a score streak, and I don't believe there's a bow and arrow in BO6 currently, but adding that exclusively into Zombies would be really cool because it would fit the map very, very well. Of course, the bosses should be medieval themed. The areas themselves, I mean, obviously those are going to be somewhat medieval themed, but go far with it. Really show off that this is a medieval map. Even the Pack-a-Punch camo should have a medieval theme to it. Adding on to that, I think the map should also have a lot of references to the Chaos story. I don't think this map is going to go full in with the Chaos story just yet. I don't think it's going to be fully themed out to like represent what the Chaos story was, but I do think there should be certain things on the map that allude to the Chaos story even more than before. First of all, I'm really hoping that the zombies here are not caused by Dark Ether rifts, and instead they're caused by the Sentinel artifact. Now, I'm sure they could do some sort of intro cutscene that utilizes the Sentinel artifact to show that that's the thing causing the zombies here, and I think that would be a really interesting thing to show, and like you can have the character's first reaction to seeing zombies getting created by the Sentinel artifact, because this is obviously a new thing to them. They don't really know how it works, so getting to see that happen in just a cutscene would be really cool. And then of course there could be a lot of other chaos related things on the map. In my opinion, what I think they should do, maybe this is too much, but I really hope they can give us ways to actually speak to the chaos characters, perhaps through like ghosts or maybe some sort of dark ether entity. I'm not really sure exactly how they should do it. I don't think the characters are going to show up physically, but I think if there were some sort of way to either hear those characters speak again or something, I think that would be really cool and a great way to utilize the Chaos story into the Dark Ether story. I also think returning the Chaos Story mystery box would be kind of like the coolest thing ever. I don't think they will personally, because we haven't had a unique mystery box since Black Ops 4 actually. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't think Vanguard, MWZ, or Cold War had a single unique mystery box. They were all just the standard mystery box, and I feel like I kind of missed that. I mean, I feel like a lot of maps in BO3 and BO4, they found ways to include unique mystery boxes, so hopefully we go back to the Chaos Story one just for this one map at least, because it's a really cool looking mystery box, and that would obviously add to the chaos vibes. And if the Sentinel artifact is going to be the thing that causes the zombies on this map, you would think that it's kind of a no-brainer, because the Sentinel artifact also created the mystery box, so I think it makes sense. Next thing is elemental swords. Now, this is something that is, of course, rumored for the map, and they kind of also teased it in their Twitter post today, where they put sword emojis on the tweet itself, so that kind of confirms that we are going to be getting elemental swords of some sort. Now, the question is, what are the swords going to be? Like, what types of elements? And are they going to be unlocked via a quest or just through the mystery box? I'm not really sure, but what I think it should be, I think we should have an ice sword, a fire sword, a shadow sword, which is kind of something similar to the dark flare ability where it has that like purpleness to it, or kind of similar to the void bow from Horizon Rock as well, where it has that purple glow to it, but it would just kind of be like something where you slice a shadow towards the zombies, and that would fit pretty well with the whole shadow element that was included in Black Ops 6 Zombies with the field upgrade as well as the ammo mod. And then the last one could maybe be like poison themed or something like that. And I think this would make sense because it would relate pretty closely to the ammo mods that are currently in Black Ops 6 Zombies. You would have obviously the Napalm Burst one, which would connect to the Fire Sword. The Cryo Freeze would connect closely to the Ice Sword. Then you would have the Brain Rot connecting to the Poison Sword. Then the Shadow Rift ammo mod would connect to the Shadow Sword. Now that leaves you with Dead Wire not connecting to anything. And I mean, they can just say whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter. If they want to throw a 5th elemental sword in there that's electric, that would be cool, but they don't need 5, I guess. It makes more sense to do 4. But actually, that would be pretty interesting if they were to do 5 variant one weapons instead of just 4. That would be pretty insane. But regardless, I think connecting them to the ammo mods makes sense. But I think the most important thing here is that these are unlocked via quests, not through just simply getting them out of the mystery box. Now, what I think they should do is something similar to what they did on D Machine, where the base one weapon is something you can get either through the box or something you can just do a quest for. And in this case, it would be just the base sword. It would have no special abilities on it. It would just be a normal sword that you can slice through zombies with. And that would obviously be really cool on its own. But if you want to get these specific variants for it, you have to actually do a quest for each individual one. And now in this way, I kind of hope they just go full Der Eisendrache on us and give us like full on quests that you have to go on that actually take a while for each of them, and you have to be tied to that quest as your player. Like your player is tied to that quest and has to continue that before continuing into the other quests. Now, some people might not like that. I think some people would probably prefer if you can just do them in any order and you can kind of just, you know, mix and match, which I guess you technically could in DE if you just go up to the arrow and change your quest path. But regardless, I would just kind of prefer that. I just think there's something really interesting about having these very specific quests that had so much personality to them in the way they were designed. And I do hope some of them are actually very challenging, but you can also make some of them very easy. That's kind of what DE did as well. I mean, the Storm Bow is very easy to get. The Wolf Bow is also pretty easy to get, but the Void Bow and the Lava Bow are a little harder. Those are the ones that are meant for more hardcore players. Now, I think what they should do is balance it a bit better, because they did a terrible job of balancing it, because the best bows happen to be the Wolf Bow and the Storm Bow, even though those were the easiest ones to get. So what did most players do? They just went for the easiest ones that were also the best ones. It didn't really make sense in terms of balancing. What they should do here is make it so the better ones are a bit harder to get, but the ones that aren't as good are maybe a bit easier to get. Now, you know, balance them so they're all relatively good. Don't make any of them shit or anything like that. But I definitely think having a difference in the quest is actually pretty important to making sure they're not repetitive and making sure there's, you know, a reason for certain players to get a specific sword. I think that's kind of what DE was all about. Usually the players who weren't as good would be getting the ones that are easier to unlock, and then the players that were a bit more hardcore and a bit more experienced would usually go for something like the Lava Bow, because they knew it was going to be a lot harder to get. Fire Bow, I don't know why I call it Lava Bow, but Fire Bow is usually what people call it. And if they do this, I do think it would make sense to not force the player to get all 4 swords if they're playing solo. Instead, do what DE did and make it so however many players are in the game is how many of these swords you actually need for the quest. Or they can just go full on Ancient Evil or Origins, where you do have to actually get all of them and utilize them in the Easter egg. And if they do that, they probably would have to make the quests just a little bit easier. Or they could do what Ancient Evil did, where there's one upgrade for them that you have to do for the Easter egg. Well, not in case of the Hand of Gaia, that one you actually didn't have to upgrade for the Easter egg, but regardless, you have to upgrade most of them for the Easter egg. But then there's a second upgrade on top of it that you don't have to do for the Easter egg, but it is a completely separate side quest you can do. I think doing that would be really, really cool in this map. I think just giving extra ways to upgrade stuff is always going to be cool to me, especially if it's not required for the main quest. So it's stuff you can like decide, do you want to do this for the main quest? Do you want to do this so you can have the weapon be even better for the boss fight? Or do you just want to go into the boss fight with the one weapon being upgraded just once? I think that would be pretty cool. I also think at least one of the swords should include puzzles in its quest to unlock it. I know people hate puzzles, but I think puzzles are a pretty fun part of zombies, and I want to see more return, especially ones that are more integrated within the map itself. So I would love to see that, and I think a map taking place in a Citadel, you're asking for some puzzles to be included in some way, shape, or form. And now that we're getting into the DLC season, I think it makes sense to start to push more in the direction of stuff that is meant to be a little more complicated, a little more complex, but make it so it's just one wonder weapon. So if you don't like puzzles, you just simply don't go for that specific sword. If you don't like them, you just do the easier sword that is easier to unlock. It's simple as that. The next thing on my wish list is that we don't see Manglers, Vermin, or Abominations.
Say it! No!
Manglers.
No, 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 no!
Manglers. I don't want to see any boss that is already in BO6 currently return on this map. If we see any of those, it's gonna put a bad taste in my mouth immediately. It's not gonna ruin the map for me, don't get me wrong. If there's Manglers, Vermin on this map, I'm definitely gonna be annoyed, but it's not gonna completely ruin the map for me. It's not gonna just tank it for me. Just keep that in mind. But this is very, very important. I really, really do think it's important. And when it comes to mimics, those are currently rumored to be coming at some point in the DLC season. I don't want to see them return. I really, really don't. But I wouldn't be like that frustrated if they did, because at least they aren't currently in BO6 already. I just really don't want to see any bosses from Liberty Falls or Terminus return here. Those bosses are cool, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see the point of having them be on every single map. I think that's kind of just redundant, and I got a feeling, I got a really, really slim feeling that we are going to see Manglers return at the very least, and I just really don't want to see that. I really, really don't. I feel like what they're going to end up doing is they're going to end up having a brand new boss, and then they'll have the Mangler, and then they'll have the Hellhounds. I expect Hellhounds to return. Those were leaked as well, which I'm okay with Hellhounds returning. Those are kind of an iconic boss at this point. Having them on at least like one map in the game makes sense, but I really, really, really don't want to see anything from BO6 currently return on this map. Now let's talk about that main quest a little bit, because you guys know how important main quests are to me in Call of Duty Zombies at this point. It is like the bread and butter of the Zombies experience. I really, really want this Easter egg to be quite complex. I think they need to take a step further than what Terminus was. I like Terminus's Easter egg, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's quite on the level of BO3 and BO4 just yet. Obviously, we don't want to go in a direction of making these steps nonsensical. That's not what I'm saying. Just make them a little bit more challenging and a little more complicated, which means have some more puzzles, have some, longer steps that are a lot more challenging and will result in a lot more game overs. That is what I want to see from this quest. I also think the quest should include more fantastical elements as opposed to scientific elements. And what I mean by that is obviously Terminus and Liberty Falls, their quests are very much related to things, scientific. You have, obviously different devices you're using in the labs. The only things that are more fantastical is like the dark ether elements that you're using, like the Ethereum canisters, for example, on Liberty Falls. But everything else is kind of more scientific. I want to go in more of a fantastical direction on this map because it makes perfect sense given the theme of it and the fact that the Chaos story is coming into the fold. I want steps where we're escorting ghosts across the map, kind of like what we did on Dead of the Night. I want quests where we're dealing with like ancient ruins of some sort and touching all sorts of weird things and make some sort of weird abilities come out of them. All sorts of weird shit like that that goes back to what the Chaos story was like. I want to see more of that in the Easter egg steps rather than just a bunch of scientific stuff. I think that is what will really, really set this map apart from other Dark Ether maps, and I think that could be really, really awesome. And adding on to that, we really, really do need a bunch of rewarding side quests that are actually somewhat difficult to do. I think some of them should be easy. I like having some simple ones here or there where you just shoot something and then it gives you like a double points. For example, Terminus and Liberty Falls have a bunch of those, and I'm perfectly fine with those existing, but also include some ones that are a bit more challenging, ones that actually make you go on a long side quest. The best example of one of those in Black Ops 6 is obviously the Cursed Talisman quest on Terminus. That map actually takes a decent amount of time to do, but I want more stuff like that, more stuff that's a bit harder, more stuff that's going to take up more of your time in the game, and just overall give you more things to do as you're playing the map. I also really hope the SAM trial system gets a bit of a change for this map. I like how it works on Terminus and Liberty Falls, but what I really think is important for a Zombies experience is to have certain mechanics change map to map, just to give the game more variety, so we're not feeling the repetitiveness map to map, because getting to experience completely brand new things when you carry over to a new map is important. That is what gives the map new kind of life, and I feel like if it just feels like another BO6 map in terms of a lot of the things being too similar to the launch maps, I'm gonna kind of have an issue with that. So I hope the SAM trial system can change up a little bit, even if it just goes back to the exact same system that Cold War had as well as what Ancient Evil had. I would honestly be okay with that. Just getting something different map to map is what I think is really, really important. Adding on to that, I also think we should be getting a unique Exfil system. The Exfil has been kind of too similar map to map. It's usually just you exfil on a helicopter, and I was kind of disappointed that Terminus didn't change it up and have it be like a boat exfil of some sort. I feel like that makes sense. Why wouldn't we exfil on a boat? I don't know, but I really hope they change it up here and make it so you're not just exfilling on a helicopter again. Maybe make it so you're exfilling in some sort of vehicle, like a ground vehicle, or make it so you're exfilling through a dark ether portal. Now, maybe not dark ether portal, but you know what I mean, some sort of portal that takes you to another part of the world. I mean, that's kind of what happened in Vanguard. The exfil in that game was a giant portal, something like that, where it just changes things up a bit, makes it so you're not doing a very similar thing that you already did on the prior maps. That would be really cool. This is something I feel about pretty much all zombies maps, but I really do think we need to start getting more maps that have a lot of interactive map features that are just littered throughout different areas of the map. Give me just random things to mess around with, even if it's very minuscule, just fun little things to mess around with, fun little features. Just as like an example, the arcade system on Zombies in Spaceland was a great, fun little thing to mess around with. And I feel like zombies maps don't really get a lot of that nowadays. It's all mainly the Easter eggs and the side Easter eggs, but you can also just throw in fun, random map features just to mess around with. I think that's always cool to have. And when it comes to a map that takes place in a Citadel, I feel like a lot of the different map features you would include would have to ultimately be something fantastical of some sort. Just a small example of something I can think of is if they have an area of the map that has one of those drawbridges that you frequently see in castles, I think it'd be really cool if you can just activate it and deactivate it. So maybe if you want that pathway to be open, you would activate it so you would have the drawbridge go down. But if you wanted to get rid of that pathway and maybe block off where zombies can come from, you would then press the button again and then would open up the drawbridge, which maybe can lead certain things to go through the river area, if that exists on this map. We don't really know what's going to be on the map just yet, which is why I'm saying I think that would be really, really cool to see. The last thing I think this map really needs is just a bunch of unique things. I've already kind of talked about that before when it comes to uniqueness, but to take it a step further, I think even the weapons should be relatively unique. When it comes to the new DLC guns that are being added to Season 1, that includes the Krig and the SOG, I do really think these weapons should be unique in the mystery box to Citadelle de Mor. As kind of a compromise that I thought would kind of work is that these weapons could still be available on Liberty Falls and Terminus as long as you use them as your loadout weapon, but do not put those weapons in the mystery box. And evidently they actually haven't put them in the mystery box yet. You cannot get the Krig and the SOG at the mystery box on Terminus and Liberty Falls currently, and I hope it stays that way. I do not want every single map to have the exact same weapons in the mystery box. Make it so some maps have different types of weapons. Change up the wall weapons as well. Make it so it really feels as different of a map as humanly possible, and part of that would be the DLC weapons just not being available on every single map. Obviously they're going to do that for perks, where there's going to be new perks added, and the only way to get those perks on the older maps is going to be through the Wonder Fizz. And of course, because you can't get the Wonder Fizz until round 28, it's going to feel more unique to Citadel de Mor than it would otherwise if they just, like, for example, just took the exact perk machine and put it into the prior maps, kind of like what they did with Mule Kick back during Black Ops 1, where they physically put the Mule Kick machine on the prior maps. So I think this is a good compromise because there's players out there who want more map unique things like me, and there's other players who just want everything to be available on like every single map. Basically, they want all the perks to be on every single map, they want all the guns to be on every single map because they don't want to feel like they're being held back on certain maps in terms of content. They want every map to just be a full sandbox of everything the game has available to them. And to that I say, no, I don't like that. But like I said, this is a good compromise. You can still use those weapons on the older maps through the loadout system, but if you want to get it through the box, no, you're only going to be able to get that through the mystery box on the later maps that the weapons are added to. All in all, that is my wish list for Citadelle de Mor, which is releasing on December 5th. I'm definitely going to be covering this map as much as I possibly can, and of course, all of the marketing leading up to it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Peace out.